Grid. Alongside him and just slightly ahead to his right is Norbert Michelisz in the best of the Hyundai i30 TCRs in qualifying. And it is a front row lockout for Sebastian Loeb Racing. First time ever the team have locked out the front row of a world-class race. So there are two cars, Mehdi Banani in second, Rob Huff in first, 27 thousandths between them. That underlines what a good job Banani has done in qualifying, because Huffy was fully lit all the way through, kept improving, and Mehdi kept going with him.
Yeah, Banani's had a really strong qualifying session and an exceptional job to qualify so close to his teammate. And I think the impressive thing he's done there is that he's used Rob as a tool. Every time during the sessions and between the sessions, he's been looking through Rob's data and finding out where he can improve and how he can get on terms with Rob, and that's netted him a front row grid slot.
So Rob Huff on the DHL pole, ahead of teammate Mehdi Banani, Norbert Michelisz and the points leader Jan Erlaché. YMR, row 3 of the grid, with Ted Björk ahead of Ivan Moller. So just the 5 World Touring Car Championship titles on that row then. John Philippi ahead of Esteban Guerrieri, the Corsican from the Argentine. The Italian Gabriele Tarquini has a space alongside him, where Jean-Carl Vernet will not start in the best qualified Audi. James Thompson then has a gap to go for from 11th. So does Zolt Szabo from 12th. Pepe Oriola might already be moving ahead of Benjamin Lessen with that dragging clutch. Aurélien Comte, the better of the two Peugeots, in 15th ahead of Tom Coronel. And then the Audis in a cluster. Nat Berton is now the best Audi on the grid, ahead of Gordon Shedden, Frederick Vervisch, Aurélien Panis, and their teammate Denis Dupont. That Audi cluster split only by Norbert Nage. Fabrizio Giovanardi's Alfa ahead of Jose Rodriguez, the wild card, and penalties dropping fellow wild card Edgar Florindo to the last row of the grid behind Gianni Morbidelli, but ahead of Mato Homola. So getting ready to go racing. It is an 11-lap race duration, with the potential to add up to 2 more laps in case of a safety car, which might well be needed given the history of this track, and 27 make that 26 eager drivers. And there is the Joker lap. Oh yes. So if you didn't see free practice, if you didn't see qualifying and see the drivers rehearsing the Joker lap, as in rallycross, in one of the laps of the race, you must go not on the normal racing line, but around a longer loop, basically the wrong way round a roundabout, or in this country, no, in this country, the wrong way round a roundabout. In the UK, the right way round a roundabout. And that gives an extra 4 seconds to the lap or so, and that will potentially start to mix up the order a little. You can't do it on the first 2 laps of the race, but after the leader has begun his 3rd lap, then anybody can do it. You don't have to have done 2 laps yourself, because lap 3 starts when the leader goes on it, whether you are starting lap 3 or not. So we've seen a couple there. Now then, Jean-Carl Vernet is at pit exit now. It's a long way up to the track, isn't it? You know, that's in the pit lane. You've got a tight right-hander up a little hill, a tight left-hander through past race control and then out on track. So he'll be a long way back by the time he gets out on the circuit.
It wouldn't surprise me if they retire the car during the race and they just use this as a bit of a shakedown, because there's no point really risking the car. He's extremely unlikely to score any points running 27th on the road once this race gets underway. So wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't do the full race distance, to be honest.
No, I agree entirely. Teams Championship, Munich Motorsport and Ivan Muller Racing, neck and neck. BRC, the other Hyundai team, not too far behind. SLR will have moved up. Don't think those points have changed, actually, since qualifying. But no, they will move up substantially if the 2 Golfs finish where they are now. Well, there's the second of our wild cards. Edgar Florindo behind Jose Rodriguez. And these guys are hanging a long way out of the tail of the field, and they need to catch up to the queue. Otherwise, the leader will be sitting boiling his clutch. And this happened the last time that Rob was on pole. He was complaining a lot about that. Then he got to the grid and was a long wait, and everything was really overheating.
There's nothing worse than when these cars are stood still, because there's no airflow through the car, through the engine, through the brakes, through the driver. So there's a lot of heat soak, and it all tends to build up. So suddenly you start pouring with sweat. It's like when you're running and then you stop. You suddenly start sweating.
Yeah.
And it's no different for the drivers that are at the front of the grid that have to wait for everybody else to form up. So, of course, they're always pushing for the grid to formate as quickly as possible.
And the problem is you want to go relatively quickly to the grid to get heat into your tyres, because as the leader, you've got the most to lose in the first corner if you outbrake yourself. Everybody else goes by you as you stick it in the barriers.
Absolutely.
So it's a very tough balance to achieve. And you can see how much some of the cars are slowing down. There's John Philippi in his grey Cupra slowing right down, just ahead of Yann Alochet, ahead of rather Esteban Guerrieri. So Huff is there. We've barely got 10 cars on the grid yet, and the 2 SLR Golfs are ready to rock. You see all the extra grid markings there. You've got to make sure that you are in your yellow grid box. And there's Zolt Szabo making absolutely certain that he did not roll forward into the next available grid box, which was Jean-Carl Vernet's. And still, we are waiting. So there's Norbert Nagy in his grid box, the other lime green and black Zengo Motorsport car, Denis Dupont, Fabrizio Giovanardi, Jose Rodriguez, Gianni Morbidelli is not in his grid box. Where's Morbidelli gone? Did he not leave the pit lane? There's a gap. There's no Morbidelli ahead of Florindo and Homola. So we're missing 2 cars. 25 are ready to take the start here. The green flag waves on the roundabout in the background. The revs rise. How hot have the clutches got on the Golfs? Decent start from Rob Huff, and Mehdi Benani makes a really good start. Looking up the inside, the blue car, Norbert Michelisz, and a very tardy getaway from Ivan Moller, who is going to be absolutely swamped, and it's Benani leaning on Huff as they go through the long right-hander. Benani trying to position himself, and the red flags will come out as the 2 Golfs have made contact heavily, and that is the very worst possible getaway for everybody. Brief fire under the bonnet of Rob Huff's car. Norbert Michelisz sort of got through, and there wasn't much left of his car, so we've lost Huff, Benani, Michelisz without question. And there is James Thompson going forward to try and help to make sure everybody gets out. That is Ted Björk, I think, jumping out of his car. Yes, it is.
Huff can't get the door open, I don't think.
Tarquini got out. Norby is going back to the pits. Why is he in a hurry? Because he wants them to fix the car, because he's a championship contender. The door is hanging off, so Huff got hooked up around the nose of Benani's car. Underneath Benani's car was that Ted Björk? It must have been Ted Björk's car. Brief fuel fire under his bonnet and Huff's. And from Norby's view, Huff is trying to get alongside. Contact. Oh, and that breaks the left suspension of Huff's car.
I've just no idea what they were both doing. Absolutely no idea.
Benani was trying to get the inside for the next left so he could then control the corner, and Ted Björk had Benani's car land in his windshield. That's John Philippi out of the race, and the onboard camera there was with Esteban Guerrieri, so he is out of the race as well. Now, the only other racetrack we've ever seen accidents like this on is Macau, and that is Benani looking very unsteady on his feet there. I shouldn't be at all surprised if the steering wheel hasn't really wrenched his wrist. But that is the end, potentially, of the weekend for some of these cars and drivers.
Certainly both Sebastian Loeb racing cars.
Now, they have all night to rebuild the cars without penalty before tomorrow, but it depends what's left of them.
Huff's car doesn't even have an engine in it, I don't think.
Well, it doesn't have much forward of the windscreen, does it? I mean, the great good news is that the safety cells have held up for everybody, but that is Benani down there with Gabriele Tarquini helping him. Tarquini still with his helmet on, and the medical crews are there. Well, lots and lots of concern for everybody.
Which is the car that's forward left of our picture?
I think that's Gabriele's car. No, it can't be. He was too far back.
Yeah.
Alochet, no, he got stuck. Björk was underneath. Muller, in a bizarre way, lucked in. See, why has Norby not gone to the pit lane? They're not going to fix it on the grid. They might fix it on the grid.
Actually, I think it's only a door, so...
Yeah. So there's the white car of Ted Björk, but look at this. Huff trying to come back around the outside, and it's okay up to there. No dramas behind, except Muller's going very slowly. But watch as there's contact with the left rear of Huff's car and Bernani's front wheel. Here they're okay, they're side by side. It's that touch that bounces Huff in the air, possibly just breaks his suspension arm. But then, okay, you've got one car sideways, two cars in the barriers, three cars with one underneath.
Just such a horrendous
Guerrieri, Tarquini, 74, Oriola's in there as well. His car is probably not going to make a restart.
I thought the fire was originally from Huff's car, but actually it's Bjork's car that's on
It's
fire.
both. It's Rob's and Ted's. And you can see why, can't you? That is a big old shunt. That is a very... Oh, look at the wheel off Huff's car. Huff's car came bouncing back down over the top of the accident. There's Esteban Guerrieri as well down there. Now, Norby's made it to the grid. The team is saying, what can we do? And the answer is, when the red flags are out, you can do anything. You can take your tyre trolley out there, you can change tyres, you can fix the car, you can rebuild it. Now then, did Jean-Carl Vernet leave the pit lane? Because if he hasn't, he'll be a lap down. If he has...
I think he did. There'd be no reason why he didn't.
Well, there's Norbert Michelisz with Andrea Adamo. This is going to take a long while to clear up, I'm afraid. First of all, there's a lot of damaged machinery. Secondly, the barriers have taken a massive impact. Third, medical crews need to get to, and I'm pretty sure is that Mehdi or is that Rob? It's one of the SLR drivers. I have a feeling it might be Mehdi, who was just looking very wobbly.
I think it's Rob.
Well, Alex is down on the grid with Norby. It is Rob Huff. Let's see what Norby thinks of it all.
Norby, just a quick word. Just talk us through from your perspective what happened there, please.
I don't know. From what I saw, it was Rob and Mehdi colliding. And I experienced the big push from behind. My car went sideways, and because of that, I couldn't avoid the accident. So I'm a bit angry because of that, since if there is not the hit from behind, I think I could have survived the accident. And I don't know now. The car looks a bit like in Ace Ventura.
When you got out just then, you looked obviously, understandably, a little bit shaken, but physically you feel okay?
It was a big impact, but nothing serious from my side. I mean, it was a big crash. I don't know if it was Rob's or Mehdi's car, but as you can see, the damage was quite big, or is quite big.
Well, Richard, you know, none of the drivers, of course, have got anybody else's view other than through their own visor. And...
yeah, Michelisz at this point will just know there's been a big crash behind him and the circuit's blocked, but he won't have any idea of just how violent that accident was. And obviously everybody hopes that we're all okay. You can see Ivan's start very, very poor, almost like he's in the wrong gear.
Yeah.
Just did not get away at all. But as you said, Martin, perhaps a saving grace, because he would have been
and
right
Gordon
up there.
Shedden as well. You know, all the Audis weaving around him and Aurélien Comte. So Shedden got a very tardy getaway, and that puts him several places behind the accident. Well, watch again.
See, Bernani would think that's his corner by now.
Yeah. But then we get another right-hander, and by that stage they've made contact. It was the back of Rob's car hit the side of Norby's. There is a brief fire, and luckily that has gone out. They have all dry brake lines, so what's in the fuel line goes. So watch what comes to hit Norby. It's the boot of Rob's Golf. And Rob straight into the barriers, and then a big impact from behind. From Esteban Guerrieri, Jan Erlache's viewpoint rather. Championship leader, doesn't get a good getaway. Ted Björk goes by him. Now he's trying to do what Rob does, but then suddenly, oh my goodness me.
Zero chance for anybody,
so
really.
He's in the accident, and then debris comes towards him. Now, where did Ivan end up? It did sound like he was completely in the wrong gear, didn't it? He's getting passed by left, right, and centre. Vervish goes by him, who started 19th. Berton goes by him, who started 17th. Flash goes by him, and Ivan avoids all the damage. If we do get restarted,
Did you see the barrier? The barrier was literally a gaping hole.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
punched straight through.
Those are our two wild cards. Jose Rodriguez with his helmet off and Edgar Florindo with his helmet on. Not sure why you'd be walking back with your helmet on. I'd be having that off in a second.
I'm not sure why they'd be walking back unless they've been told to.
Well, there's James Thompson. Because you can't help. You can't help the rescue crews.
You're supposed to stay with your car unless you're told to go.
Well, it may be that marshals said, OK. And in fact, our race director is saying that there will be a long pause because we've got to replace lots of barriers. So,
yeah.
Norby being called back to the grid by the team, but we will, first of all, we need to clear the wreckage, then we need to clean the circuit, then there are the barriers to be dealt with, and as you say, you know, that's punched gaping holes in the barriers. Well, the car is down there being worked on, whether they have another door skin or not. You can see all the tyre trolleys are coming on. Basically, under a red flag, you can fix whatever you can. James Thompson's back down at the grid, and Alex Legui is with him.
You walking back there, James, talk us through what happened.
I think the first two guys came together, and they were narrowing at the top a bit there, and then they just blocked the track, and everybody just concertinated into each other. But the problem was one of the cars, I obviously had a big accident into the back of Jan, and the car was totally destroyed. But the thing that worried me was one of the cars in front was on fire, so I tried to get out, and
Well, you could hear the definite tremor in Norby's voice as well. You know, when these things happen, the driver is so amped up on adrenaline anyway. You know, that's what allows you to drive a racing car right on the ragged edge. Is having the adrenaline that keeps the reflexes sharp and really accelerates the speed at which the brain is working. But when you're in a, or when there is a big crash like that, whether you're involved or not, the moment that adrenaline goes, then everybody is very aware of what a lucky escape it might have been.
And every racing driver's biggest fear is fire.
Yep.
And James, you know, an old hand at motor racing, been around a long time, knows that everyone's in a very confined space there, and not everybody may be able to get out of their doors, etc., etc. So, you know, naturally and understandably, a very big fear for any racing driver is fire. So.
Yeah. Always was, always will be, particularly, and you know, particularly you saw Jimmy running forward to try and make sure that other people were getting out of cars, because that's the big worry. Well, Alex is down there. You saw Jose Rodriguez arriving, and Edgar Florindo as well. And Jose, I think, summing up what everybody thinks, you know, a disaster, big disaster.
It's also, you know, there's a regulation that drivers have to get out of the car within 7 seconds.
Yep.
And that is for the reason of fire. And clearly the way the cars were all concertinaed up there, blocking the track, not everybody may be able to use their doors and exits as you would train for. So, you know, clearly a big concern with what looked to be Ted Bjork and Rob Huff's car having some fire.
Well, down on the extreme left of your picture, James Thompson with his wife Zoe walking back. And as he said, you know, he had as he said, big hit with the back of Jan's car. So his car is effectively scrap, he reckons. So I think he's going to go and sit down somewhere cool and calm and just let all the adrenaline go. It's that fight or flight thing. And once you've stopped the fight, i.e. the race, then all of the effects of adrenaline that everybody else normally gets, which is, you know, the fear factor, that's all that comes in. Well, the track is completely blocked, so there will be no cars moving for quite some while. We have to move all the wreckage first, because cars aren't going to come backwards down the hill, and there's an awful lot of damaged cars that will require assistance. And unfortunately, as James was saying, it is in the pinch point where the track narrows as you get up through turn 4 to turn 5, and that's, I mean, it's certainly not as wide here for accident avoidance further up the track.
Yeah, and it's clearly a difficult clean-up operation that's now underway, and obviously the officials we mostly worried about making sure that all the drivers involved are fitting well, and if not, they're getting the medical attention that they need.
Yeah. Well, further back, Aurélien Comte sideways in the middle of the pack. You can see how narrow it is. It is just a normal urban road.
There were a couple of big hits at the back as well, Martin.
Yeah,
As a couple of the tail enders came through. There were a couple of big hits also at the back with what looked to be stationary cars at that point. So
the problem is you're so unsighted, you know, and you come flying up the hill, and if there's somebody slow in front, you want to take advantage. That, you know, he's got a problem, I've got to get round. You don't immediately think, oh, there's been a massive pile-up with every other single car in the race involved. You know, you think of the big accidents up on the back at the back of the hills in Macau. You know, the last time we had a big race stoppage was 2 or 3 years ago, and there was cars everywhere. We had it in Porto as well. That was very susceptible in the little tight double left-handers at the far end of the circuit. Very susceptible to having track blockages.
yeah, and just no one's got anywhere to go at that point.
Yeah. And you can see how narrow the road is. You've got a truck there on the left-hand side, basically using almost the entire lane, and the ambulance is taking a while to turn around. So one of the two Sebastian Loeb racing cars is on that flatbed behind the ambulance. I have to say that looks as though it's got a Moroccan flag on the roof, so I'm assuming that's Mehdi's. And the rescue workers and the medical workers are stabilising drivers. Benjamin Lecene has taken a while to be out of his car. And we're hearing that Jan Ehrlicher is also fine. Can see Ted Björk and Ivan Muller on the extreme right-hand side, just behind the guy in the yellow fluorescent jacket up against the railings. The YMR drivers in their distinctive black and white race suits. Matto Homler his car was sideways, but he's okay. The interesting thing, actually, that when you got a look at Norby's car was that it was in the driver's door, where he got hit by the back of Rob's car, and all the side intrusion panels had clearly done their job, and there was no impingement at all in the driver cockpit space. It was obviously at speed, but it was a relative glancing blow. I mean, the thing that will have rung Rob's bell is just turning hard into the barriers, or whatever speed they were doing there, 75, 80 miles an hour. Basically, the car would have come to a total halt in terms of forward motion, even if it was being pushed sideways. So that's a very, very abrupt stop. And that's absolutely will have knocked the wind out of his sails. There's Aurélien Comte, a few cars being pushed backwards. The problem here is actually it's quite a long downhill run. So what you actually want to do is maybe turn the cars around. See barriers already being pulled out there on the left of the shot, on that previous shot, to try and start repair work, but we need to get the track cleared first. So our race director, Miroslav Bartos, now has to try and make the decision as to whether or not there is any hope of getting this race started in terms of when he has to hand the track back to normal civilian life. And in theory, this race should finish at 4:30 local time, which you sort of assume, and it is the last track action of the day, which you sort of assume means that the racetrack will go live for the public again, probably around 6 p.m. local. Unfortunately, it's already 20 past 4. We should be within 10 minutes of the finish of the race, and there's definitely no chance that we're within 10 minutes of the restart of the race. So Aurélien Comte now with the unenviable.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the FIA World Touring Car Cup by Oscaro. We're here once again from the streets of Villarreal. Now, just about 2 hours ago, we started race 1, but unfortunately had a very, very large crash, and all 27 of our cars were involved. Now, all of our drivers are okay, but only about 17 cars will continue. Now, behind me on the grid, we are going to make a restart. It will be under safety car conditions, but let's get race 1 underway once again around the streets of Villarreal.
Thanks, Al. What, and that's all you're going to do? Well, here's what happened at the first attempt to start this race. Rob Huff on pole, slow away compared to Mehdi Benani and Norbert Mikelic. Into the first corner, a right-hander, then a little left-hand kink, then corner 3, another right-hander, And that's where it all went wrong for the Sebastian Loeb racing cars. Norbert Michelitz's car initially got through, but not without damage. And here's what happens, they're banging wheels, but it's when Huff starts to get in front, his right rear wheel arch extension catches the left, his left rear catches the right front of Mehdi Benani's car, bounces Huff in the air, and Huff straight into the barriers at unabated speed. I mean, absolutely flat out in third, fourth gear or so. Major, major carnage. The race stopped instantly and lots of damage. And that is the area where the damage occurred. The barriers have been repaired. As you can see, all sorts of fluids. There was a brief fire under the bonnet of Ted Björk's car. His car won't go again, nor will Jan Erlaché, the points leader, nor will Norbert Michelitz, because his roll cage has been damaged by the impact from the back of Rob Huff's car, and neither will Mehdi Benani or Rob Huff, who were the first two men on the grid. So the first 5 cars on the original grid are not fit to race. The first of those who is fit is the white car on the left of your screen, number 48. That's Ivan Muller's car. And amazingly, he finds himself then restarting on pole position from Esteban Guerrieri, Gabriele Tarquini and Jean-Carl Vernet. Vernet, like Muller, didn't make a great start and as a result avoided most of the carnage. So the cars that are fit to go include Mato Hommler, who was on the back of the grid and in the original start was 27th. Here, he will go away 17th. So we are missing 10 cars from our field.
If you're wondering what happened to Norbert Michelitz, who was the only car to manage to get back to the grid after that first lap accident, sadly, in the impact with Rob Huff's car, it actually damaged the roll cage, so he's not able to take part in this race.
Yeah, so what's going to happen, I just spoke to Andrea Adamo. Andrea has got a friend about 100 kilometers away from here who's got a full race workshop. They're going to put the car on the truck, take it down there, cut out the damaged bits of roll cage, weld in new bits of roll cage, and hopefully the car will be ready to go. It will need the designer's sign-off, handily, Andrea Adamo, and also the FIA scrutineers to sign it off as safe. There's lots of cars with minor damage, some cars on the grid with really quite major damage, and they include Esteban Guerrieri, who's basically had almost everything in front of the front axle replaced. Benjamin Lecerne, his car was repaired in the pits. Pepe Oriola's car was repaired in the pits. We saw it coming back on a flatbed, but that has been allowed to rejoin the grid. Tom Coronel's car made it back to the grid. Most of the Audis did as well. I was just talking to Gordon Shedd and I said, it's not often that really shocking start saves your bacon, but for him, for Ivan Muller, and for Jean-Carl Vernet, who started from the pit lane, actually, it was sort of a blessing in disguise. So race 13 of the championship sees our 27-car field. Look at the big cloud in the background. There have been reports of lightning in the air. This couldn't get better, could it, really? More drama. Okay, we've had enough now. I think the scriptwriter has had his fun with us. And there's a lot of damaged cars. James Thompson's car almost certainly won't take any further part in the race weekend, which is a real shame for Jimmy T. And a real shame at All Inkle is that not on the grid is Jan Erlaché, the championship leader. He was very, very angry to be taken out by somebody else's accident in which he had absolutely no part and no bearing. In fact, he was several rows behind them originally on the grid. And Jan Erlaché, in fact, he was on row 2 of the grid, but Erlaché got caught up in that accident. And in fact, the entire field got caught up in it.
Of course, we've got
nowhere to go.
We've got a list of the people that are starting this race, but what we don't know is if any of them are carrying any ailments or injuries on their cars, because a lot of the repair work that was taking place in the period of this race suspension was pretty hectic, and a lot of it very rapid. So I think a lot of it is very temporary, and I know some of the teams haven't been able to make the repairs that they wanted to, so that could upset the form book in this race.
Well, down there on the grid, we were talking when the race was stopped about track temperature being 57 degrees, air temperature 33. But for the teams working on these cars, effectively the air temperature was the track temperature, because they are in the sweltering heat coming off this track. So they're repairing these cars in their overalls, in cars that are red hot having started the race. You know, Benjamin Lecen, they had to put an entire new exhaust under that car. Well, you know, 30 minutes earlier, that was running red hot. And lying under the car, trapped under the car, you know, and all the heat trapped under it, it's 60 degrees Celsius trying to replace an exhaust that's red hot, or, you know, is still too hot to touch without thick gloves on. So, you know, we're saying they're repairing things. This, the conditions down on the grid for the mechanics are absolutely an inferno, and a lot of them are facing the prospect of not going home, not getting into their beds, and possibly not even having a shower, despite the fact that all of them will desperately need it now, having hauled tyre trolleys up onto the grid from the pit lane, back down, and then back up again, and then sweated buckets trying to fix some of these cars. Some got through relatively unscathed. Actually, the two Peugeots, I think, got through reasonably well. Matto Hommler did. I think Aurélien Comte's got a few battle scars, but there's definitely some pretty badly wounded cars. Benjamin Lecen, the Honda on the other side of the road there, that took some good licks down the side.
Yeah, it's a very, very challenging environment for all the human side of this sport. What you can't see in your picture here is that the paddock is on a much, much, much lower level than the grid, and it's about a 1 in 3 hill, so in 35-degree heat with 37 degrees,
It's
with 55 degrees track temperature, whatever it is. These guys have done 2 free practice sessions, a qualifying session of 40 minutes, and of course they were all here 6:30, 7 o'clock this morning. And it's been a long old day, and we're yet to complete a racing lap. So
12-hour day. The prospect for some of them an all-nighter, and we haven't even started the race. Yeah. It's not getting much better, is it? Look how black the sky is. Now, it was absolutely crystal clear this morning. Do you know what? We're going to get this race started, and then the torrential rain that was here on Wednesday and Thursday is going to return, isn't it? It's going to be and it was absolutely biblical rain. And the hotel where we are, which is on the same level as at the top of the valley, the guys were saying yesterday, talking about it, that they were actually in the clouds, in the rain cloud. Look at that thunderhead. Wow.
Yeah, and
if you want to know what an electrical storm looks like coming in, that's it. That pillar.
The other amazing thing is just how fortunes can change. You go from Sebastian Loeb Racing, who had their best ever qualifying with a lockout in the front row, only to have such disaster 3 corners later, and I'm sure neither of their drivers will take any further place today or tomorrow. And we're looking at drivers like Ivan Muller, who didn't have the best qualifying, had an awful start, and that's what saved him, and now he's the pole sitter and the favourite for this race. And not only is he the favourite for this race, but pretty much all of his championship rivals, bar Tarquini, are out of the race. They're not even going to start. So he'll be taking huge chunks of points out of his championship rivals should he stay where he starts. And again, drivers like Pepe Oriola, who had the worst luck with qualifying in terms of red flags coming out when he was on a hot lap. He's starting on the 3rd row now, and very possibly a podium contender.
Well, Ivan is only 9 points off the championship leader, Jan Erlaché, who absolutely isn't starting this race. So you're absolutely right. You know, Ivan could end today, bizarrely, after that woeful start where he'd have been, you know, he went basically from 6th to 16th at the start. He would have been very lucky to get a point if the race had run its course. He might now end up with the championship lead overnight. And if Erlaché's car can be repaired for tomorrow, is by no means guaranteed. Esteban Guerrieri's, like I said, has been rebuilt basically from the front axle forward. Everything, radiators, cooling ducts, electrical doohickeys, lights, blah, 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 everything has been rebuilt on that car. Jan's got through relatively unscathed, Ivan's rather got through relatively unscathed. He was lucky actually, because by the time he got to the scene of the initial impact, all the barriers had been torn away, was sticking out into the track. He was lucky there was room beside him, because there was no one else there, that he could swerve around it. If not, then it would have gone straight through all his cooling systems, suspension and everything else, and he would have been having a big old accident.
Yeah. Some of the cars, particularly Guerrieri, as you said, huge repair work taking place there, but some of it was pretty hurriedly done and will need to be redone again tonight. So he's one of those cars that maybe has a question mark over whether everything's running true and proper for this race. And this is the other worry I have sometimes with these on-the-grid repairs is when you look at everything that's going on, there's so many bits of carbon fibre, pop rivets, all kinds of stuff going on the grid. You know, I'm always worried about punctures and further things going on. So it is a bit harum-scarum down there, really.
Well, there's the points leaders, very badly damaged Honda. Whether that comes out again this weekend or not remains to be seen. Certainly it's not racing today, and our points leader is with Alex Legui.
So Jan just said to me that that was the most scary experience he's ever been through in his life.
Yeah, it was disappointing and scariest thing in my life. You know, when you are like stuck in your car, you can't open the doors because you are next to the wall, next to some crashed car, and the car is starting to burn. It's actually the worst thing ever you can live. So I have to jump out of the car from the back. James opened the back from outside. So yeah, it was so scary, honestly. The impact was so big, and now I'm not even sure I will drive tomorrow. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing. I was not at the good place at the right time, but yeah, it's like this. That's motorsport. We will jump back in front the next event, hopefully.
Physically, any damage?
No, just a bit. I feel the right arm. It was more when I start to try to go out of the car. I just panic a bit. So I just hurt my arm, but no, it's fine. It was a huge impact, but the car safety enough to keep our safety.
There are 17 cars making a restart. What would be going through your head? Like, I'm not sure I would be able to restart. You know, mentally, it would be too much for me. But you guys are so brave. Would you, if you had the opportunity to?
Unfair. No, honestly, they managed to don't crash the car. They were a bit more behind, and they just keep their car alive. It was not our case in front. So I have just a bit unfair. I have to say, you know, when you push like hell in quali to start on the second row and your race is finished after 300 meters, it's like, yeah, just feel a bit disappointed. Yeah.
Well, the emotion from the drivers after the accident, and still there from Jan as well, clearly this is a very, very unusual position for racing drivers to find themselves in such a mass accident as that. I mean, every single car was involved. Nobody got through because it was the front two cars on a very narrow track and everybody unsighted. Now, Norbert Naj, Zoltan Zengo and Edgar Florindo, one of our two wildcards, are ready to start from the pit lane. So good news for both Zengo Motorsport cars. The real sadness for Zolt Szabo is that he had comfortably his best qualifying. He put the car very nicely up the grid and hadn't touched a thing, and had lots of pace in free practice. This could have been a good race for him, and then suddenly it all goes wrong and he ends up not gaining like Ivan Muller has and a couple of the others, but losing out. But at least Zoltan Zengo and his crew have got both Zengo Motorsport Cupras ready to go. In fact, the only Cupra that does not make it back out is the one that was best placed. John Philippi started the race 7th place on the grid, and his car is not back and ready for action. In fact, got a couple of big hits. The good news is that everybody got out of their cars. Yann Aleshe, it's that thing where you turn around to reach something off the back seat and you sort of pull a muscle because you're doing an unusual thing. Well, that's exactly what he's done, clearly, is just strain something. And Rob Huff and Mehdi Banani, who clearly took the brunt of all the impacts, have been taken to the local hospital for examination. And so now, how are we on lap 3? I don't see how we can possibly be on lap 3. We can only possibly be on lap 2 of what is now should read 12, because this is the first safety car lap being added to race distance. We can add up to 2 laps to the race distance to allow for safety cars. So the race distance should now go to 13 laps. And having, inverted commas, completed 1 lap by getting all the cars back round to the grid, this can't possibly be lap 3. However, the field is being led away.
I believe the race director has the capacity to shorten the race distance Again, it could be doing that because of adverse weather coming in or whatever else. But technically, this race should be a full restart. So it should be an 11-lap race. But if they're going to restart under the safety car, they'll lose 1 lap for the safety car. But that gets added back on, which should make it, in effect, a 12-lap race.
Although we're now seeing it as lap 2 of 12. So again, it didn't say race stopped. It only said race suspended. So it's not a full restart with everybody in their original grid positions and lots of gaps. It's basically everybody closed up from what remains of the grid. So Ivar Muller is the leader at the moment, although our timing screen has Norbert Michelis ahead of Gabriele Tarquini and Esteban Guerrieri, so you may have to bear with us a little.
Because this is under the safety car, this effectively counts as a racing lap.
Yes. And they will be released at the end of this lap. At least that was what we were told originally. So the rest of the field needs to close up a little bit because we will go green at the end of this lap. And at the moment, it's a 3-car race. So J.K. Verne in the background with behind him Pepe Oriola and Benjamin Lecen. They need to close up a little bit on this because we're not going to go and stop on the grid. We're just going to go. Norbert Sultan Zabo and Jose Rodriguez have rejoined at the back of the field. At least I assume they have, because the safety car queue has moved by, so the pit lane should have opened. We're in a porter cabin in a ravine, so we have to crane our necks to look up even to see the sky, which above us is clear and blue. However, what we saw coming in over the mountains wasn't clear and wasn't blue, and was very likely to be ready to dump a large amount of water in a fairly short period.
Yeah, there's been a few storms earlier in the week that sort of came in late in the day and more or less flooded the entire area. So, yeah, we're fearing the worst on the weather. Let's hear from Ivan Muller.
So you let me know when the Joker lamp is open, okay? Okay, we do 1 more lap of safety car, 1 more lap. Copy.
Okay, so the teams are being told there will be 2 safety car laps. We were told 1. But this, as you probably understand, is a movable feast. And the reason that they want to give them 2 laps is to try and clear up some of that cement dust and to make sure that everybody is very aware of just how slippery the surface is there. Essentially, it's on a little bit of a straight. However, if you're trying to move for position, you want to be aware that there will be less grip there than you thought there might be. Jose Rodriguez, it looks like, has just come back into the pit. He may not have been entirely happy with his Honda. So the order behind the safety car is Ivar Muller in the white Hyundai, Esteban Guerrieri, the black car, then Gabriele Tarquini, the blue car, then Jean-Carl Verne, turquoise and red, then Pepe Oriola in grey, Benjamin Lecen, all black, ahead of Aurélien Comte, Tom Coronel, Nat Berton and Gordon Shedden in the points, which is something that he probably didn't think he would hear during the course of today. So safety car will come in this lap as they come round here. They're halfway around the lap, basically, in terms of distance from the pit lane. And the lights will go off as he exits timing sector 2. So Bruno Correa in the Audi R8, which will be the safety car for the rest of the season. The absolute latest, spanking brand new R8 V10. And he is now at end of timing sector 2. There, the lights should go off.
Very loyal crowd here today as well, because of huge delay in stifling heat, but thankfully most of the spectators have hung around for some great action.
Right, lights have not gone off on the safety car. Now they have, but that's a long way after timing sector 2 ended. However, we get ready to go green, and everybody in the queue behind now, probably once they get out of this chicane, is just going to pull extra hard on those belts, and extra hard again. Let's see if we can get 10 laps in the books here in Villarreal before the deluge gets to us.
Ivan bolted. He timed that very, very well. Went a lot earlier than Esteban was expecting, I think, there.
Yep, Guerrieri with Tarquini and Vernet behind. Nobody pulling out of the slipstream yet. The two Zengo Motorsport Hondas, Cupras at the back of the field. But yes, Ivan Muller had the choice of when to go, and he went. And Esteban Guerrieri either couldn't respond or was caught a little bit on the hop. Jean-Carl Vernet with pressure from behind from Pepe Oriola. Vernet winner last time out in WTCR in the Netherlands, and also on last weekend before in TCR Europe, where he was also racing. So Vernet on a bit of a run of form at the moment. Ooh, drifts out a little wide at corner 6. Oriola's right with him, looking back from Jean-Carl. Behind Oriola, the Honda, Benjamin Lessen. The Hondas have been quick so far this weekend. Aurélien Comte behind him, one of our 8 different race winners so far this season in 12 previous races.
Pepe Oriola and Jean-Carl Vernet are reasonably close friends off track, so they have a pretty decent respect for each other, and they've raced alongside each other in TCR International the last couple of years.
Joker lap is now open. I don't think the leaders are going to take it yet. Ivan's only a second ahead of Guerrieri. If you're further back, stuck in traffic like Aurélien Comte there in the Peugeot, he might go for one now, and that will drop him back probably a little early for that.
Jean-Carl, le Joker lap est open à partir de maintenant finalement. Il est déjà ouvert à partir de maintenant, mais je te dirai quand il faut y aller.
Denis Dupont trying to get that place back from Fabrizio Giovanardi. The Alfa, quick in a straight line, went right around the outside of the Audi. Now, we reckon you lose about 4 seconds, so who's 4 seconds away from last? Well,
I think it's a little bit more than 4, probably 4.5, really. The issue is someone like Comte is getting held up by Lessen now. The danger is he's going to then drop straight down behind cars that are slower than him.
Okay. Anybody coming in this lap? Not yet, not yet, not yet. They'll go to the right-hand side of that roundabout as you see it. Nobody? None? No takers? Listen, if you're at the back, you might as well do it now. No, not even the Zengo Motorsport twins go through. So, Norbert Nag, 17th, Zolt Szabo, 18th. They don't take it. Now, you can take it right up to and including the last lap of the race.
Really, it makes no sense for anybody at this early stage other than those cars that are the last couple, really.
Well, if you're Edgar Florindo, Mato Homola, maybe even Denis Dupont, how far is he back? He's point... Yeah, he could. He could have done and wouldn't be back in traffic. Gives him clear air, and it means he knows he's done it. Then Dupont is actually under attack now from right behind him. Edgar Florindo in the blue and orange car. Ivan Muller is not getting away from Esteban Guerrieri, is he? Guerrieri 3/10 quicker than Ivan on the last lap. He's closed the gap down under a second. Gabriele Tarquini being dropped by the lead duo, but not yet into the clutches of Jean-Carl Vernet. But Vernet, in turn, easing away from Pepe Oriola. As you said, Richard, again, you know, all the bits on in the right position, and hopefully the tracking correct and everything else, but there's stuff potentially out of balance in the cars after some of the biffs and the bangs they've taken.
Guerrieri's car had significant repairs on the grid, but so far his pace looks good, which is a good omen that his car is okay and performing well.
Yeah, it's the fastest car at the moment, so all that work that the boys did, sweating for an hour and a half to fix it, is working well. And Esteban now with a shot of moving up the point standings from his current 7th position, because Ted Björk in front of him won't score. Nor will Rob Huff, nor will Jan Ehrliche, and Tom Coronel takes the Joker lap first, and he drops 1, 2, 3, where he was in 8th, and he's now shown as being in 14th, but...
Strategically, it's going to make a lot of sense for Comte to take the Joker lap very soon.
Yeah.
He's nearly got a 4-second gap over Nathaniel Berton.
Yeah.
And he's behind a much slower car at the moment, so I think it's going to make a lot of sense for him to consider the Joker lap sooner rather than later.
There was another couple towards the tail of the field, weren't there? I think Norbert Nudge, I think Florindo and Szabo all took it. Jean-Carl Vernet talking to Gordon Shedden at lunchtime about what's the difference between Vernet's car and his car, and he said it's the way that Vernet brutalises the car. He said his traces are just horrible to look at. It's monstering the throttle and the brake. And no, you know, he said he can live with degrees of understeer that I'll just plough off into the wall with. And there is Vernet, the only Audi winner of the season so far.
So it looks like Comp's got good pace. He's tucked up behind Lassen, who's behind the Oriola-Vernet battle. But he's shortly going to be a good 4-second chunk ahead of the next car of Nathaniel Berton. So it will start to make sense for him strategically to get his Joker lap out of the way.
Just saw a problem for Tom Coronel there, who was being passed by Norbert Nudge. So I wonder what issues he's got. Which that also means, I think, Denis Dupont may have got by him. So Ivan Muller now pulling away from Esteban Guerrieri and Gabriele Tarquini. That's the battle for second and third. Muller with a new fastest lap, 2 minutes 3.5. In comes Pepe Oriola, in comes Benjamin Lassen, in comes Aurélien Comte. Comte was committed there before the cars in front of him made that move. You have to be committed. So they've all gone through.
Yeah, Comte made the right choice, but sort of the 2 cars ahead in Oriola and Lassen preempted it. Yeah. They could see that Comte was going to have a 4-second gap and was clearly quicker. So for track position, they also had to take the Joker the same lap, really.
Tom Coronel has dropped to the tail of the running fields. Denis Dupont and Norbert Nudge taking their Jokers that time round, have not dropped behind Edgar Florindo and Zolt Szabo.
Comte really on that lap.
Oh, Nudge outbrakes himself after the Joker lap. And Florindo went, was that Jose Rucci? No, that was Florindo going by him.
Comte really should have done the absolute opposite of what the 2 cars ahead had done. He should have seen the 2 cars ahead of him in the filter lane and committed to the normal lap. That was the smart move to take the track position. I don't think he really understood that then.
Well, they haven't dropped behind the group that was chasing, led by Nat Berton and Gordon Shedden, so basically the Audi pack.
Yeah, that was the gap that was there, and that's why Comte should have come in. But the moment he saw the 2 cars ahead, they were protecting track position because they could see that Comte had that room to filter back in and get clean air. They preempted that, but Comte should have tried to take track position and then gap them.
Yeah, and you know, they're doing it for the first time. We've seen it a few years now, so it's not necessarily the sort of thing that a driver immediately instinctively reacts to if they're not used to doing it.
No, but to be fair, the team have enough people on the pit wall making these decisions that have far more information available than the drivers, and they should be saying do the opposite of the cars ahead.
And
that was the call that should have been made
as well. Yeah, exactly right, exactly right. Gabriele Tarquini now sets the fastest race lap, and in goes Tarquini. So he takes his Joker lap now. He is the first of the lead group to do so. Coronel's out of the race.
As does Vernet. Vernet also took the Joker.
Oh, and Vernet comes back on just in front of Pepe Oriola, who has already taken his Joker. So that's how close it can be now. Vernet has to have been very, very careful not to have crossed the blue line, but Oriola has the momentum and he goes by. So that's a net gain for Pepe Oriola. He'll be up to 4th place as it is now, with only the lead 2, Ivan Muller and Esteban Guerrieri in front of him, yet to stop.
And although he didn't do it in the filter lane, there's no way Pepe would have made that pass without the Joker concept. So just proves that it does work and shows some overtaking opportunities.
So now he spent the first part of the race looking at the back of Vernet's car, and Pepe jumped pretty early in for his. Now let's watch Tarquini. And in the background, Vernet comes in. Can't cross the blue line. Gabriele is completely clear there. We didn't see with Tarquini. Well, there is with Vernet, rather. And Vernet now on the defensive against Benjamin Lassen, and that's going to allow Pepe to get away. Pepe's in 4th. And Pepe, last time round, was 3.9 seconds behind Ivan Muller. That's not enough of a gap for Ivan Muller to guarantee he's going to emerge free from traffic.
See, sorry to go on like a broken record, but this is why Comte absolutely needed to do the opposite, because he's had the pace, he's quicker than Le Sen, he's quicker than Vernet, and all he did was keep track position with the cars that he's quicker than.
Yeah.
So he really needed to do the opposite strategy of the cars ahead, because if he had done so, he would be ahead of Oriola at the moment because he hasn't taken his joker.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he would have the pace for Oriola, but he almost certainly would have jumped Vernet and he would have jumped Le Sen.
He would absolutely jump Le Sen. Okay, the leaders are through, and again, don't do what the other guy does. Esteban Guerrieri committed too soon. Well, there's no net loss. So Ivan Muller comes back out in the lead ahead of Gabriele Tarquini with Esteban Guerrieri between them, and through goes Gordon Shedden now. What does this do to the Audi pack? Well, what it means is Nat Berton hasn't taken his, nor has Aurélien Panis, and Shedden's on the inside and keeps his nose in front of Frederick Vervisch, who has taken his joker lap. And that's Matteo Homolo right behind Fabrizio Giovanardi.
Giovanardi will get a penalty for that. 100% he crossed the blue line on the exit. He was well over that filter line, so I believe that Giovanardi will be looking at a penalty for that.
Yeah, not sure what the statutory penalty is. Can't remember from last year, to be honest. But they were very, very hard on it in free practice to underline to drivers, you do not cross the blue line.
Yeah, sadly,
so they've had plenty of warning. Yeah, well, you know, in the heat of battle, keep somebody behind. That's the main instinct, isn't it? So 2 cars yet to take theirs. Berton and Panis, you can see with a little red alongside them. It's now lap 9 of 13, so this plus 4.
I can kind of understand Guerrieri following Muller. It's kind of the safer option, trying to preserve a second place, but a lot of carnage, going to outscore a lot of championship rivals.
Yeah.
And really, he probably feels like he's racing Tarquini, because actually, pace-wise, Guerrieri's been sort of conceding 2-3 tenths a lap to Muller after that initial couple of laps where he was quick. So I can kind of understand that one. The one that frustrates me was the comp one.
Jose Rodriguez, one of our wild cards, who came in at the back of the safety car. And Dupont, his car has stopped. Now, you'll probably see the lights flash on and off as he cycles through to try and get it to restart. That'll be about the 3rd or 4th car to stop there in Giovanardi and Comte, and Homolo, rather. Still hard at it. So there's Jean-Carl Vernet ahead of Benjamin Le Sen and Aurélien Comte. And there's Berton and Panis. Berton commits, Panis decides not to. He's going to try and gain an advantage over his garage mate, and here comes Gordon Shedden and Frederick Vervisch behind, and they don't get back in front of Nathaniel Berton, so Berton held on there. And now only Panis and Rodriguez, who's just left the pits, have yet to do their joker lap. So Panis, currently in 8th, will drop back behind these guys unless he can find a bit more pace.
It's clearly a bit of a different setup philosophy between those Audi teams. You can see that Gordon's running a much stiffer car. He's picking up that inside rear wheel in some of the tighter corners, and that shows to me that they've got a very different setup philosophy.
Yellow's in sector 2, and that'll be where Denis Dupont's car, I imagine, is still stationary. So there'll be no overtaking briefly there. Gordon Shedden in the middle of that little trio of Audis. There's Pepe Oriola in 4th, Jean-Carl Vernet in 5th, Benjamin Le Sen in 6th, and it'll be 0 points for Belgium's Denis Dupont here. I think we can safely talk to him about Football World Cup, can't we?
Certainly can.
Yeah, I think Belgium are looking quite hopeful. Come-to racing team, powerless to intervene and help out, I'm afraid, for Denis Dupont. You know, all the engineer can say on the radio is, "Have you tried turning it off and on again, sir?" And that's about it. Aurélien Comte flying over the curbs, still in 7th place. Aurélien Panis 8th and yet to stop. Nat Berton 9th, Gordon Shedden 10th. So Shedden in the points, and Frederick Vervisch not at the moment, but from Panis, Berton's 1.8, plus 0.6 is 2.4, plus 0.3 is 2.9. So Panis at the moment needs to go and somehow try and find more pace until the very last lap, or he will drop out of the points.
Giovanardi on our timing screens officially under investigation for the line crossing that we witnessed. So I think that's pretty much a slam dunk, really. I expect Giovanardi to get a penalty there.
Car setting faster and faster laps. Denis Dupont now has abandoned ship. Oh, really? I think I might have gone back up behind the barriers to the outside of the circuit there. But he clearly knew that everybody was a long way away.
There won't be a delay there. It's a fairly safe part of the circuit. They'll just be dealing with that with double-waved yellows.
In fact, there are no yellows there now, so those are being withdrawn because the cars, everybody knows where it is. As you say, you know, it's in a sort of dogleg where the barrier on the exit of the corner, it's in the shadow of that as the driver sees it, so the driver doesn't need to be out there. Aurélien Comte losing a bit of pace now. Benjamin Lecerne, Aurélien Comte and Aurélien Panis have just set their fastest laps of the race. That's Panis in the background of that shot. And here's a little dice with Edgar Florindo under pressure from Norbert Nudge. Fastest race lap for Nudge, 2:05.5. For Florindo, 2:05.1. But he's losing pace the longer the race goes on. And Nudge having a little look up the inside. He's had a bit of a touch with something on the right rear of his car. Florindo defending hard. This is little shades of Porsche versus Ford at Le Mans in the GT battle a week ago, where apparently the Ford driver had little control over the steering and the car was zigzagging from side to side. Florindo makes one move. Nudge is right up under his rear wing.
So Audi slowing in the background of our shot there.
Now, was that Panis or was it Vervish? No, it wasn't. It was Nat Berton, and still in the lead of this group, and that's Vervish. So was that Panis?
Must have been Panis.
So was he slowing because he was coming down? No, he hasn't done his Joker lap, and he has ground to a halt instead. That's interesting. So how many Audis have we now had come to a halt with no damage and no contact? I think NVH is not the friend of their electronics. Noise, vibration and harshness, or in this case, nasty vibration and heat. The electronic packages on these cars, a combination of race-based and road-based kit. We don't know which bits are switching themselves off. Various cars have had sensor issues. There's Berton in 8th, Shedden in 9th, Vervish in 10th, all in the points. And this battle here, Jean-Carl Vernet, ahead of Benjamin Lecerne. Lecerne must be getting very irritated by now. He's pushing Vernet off the corner, and Comte is trying to push him. And Comte down the inside, couldn't quite squeeze through. Ooh, little wriggle there from Lecerne as he got over the curbs, and this is a chance for Comte because Lecerne had to basically just gather it all up, and Comte has the momentum and he goes by. Well, he worked hard for his living there for that 6th position, didn't he, Aurélien Comte?
The other interesting thing is that the Audi has a central exhaust, so when that Honda got right up the back of Vernet, he would have got a big induction of exhaust heat and just a little burp of no power in the acceleration, and that was probably enough just for Comte to get a run on him.
Yeah, we've heard that over the season from other drivers saying it's the heat from the exhaust in front is just overriding the intercooler's job, and so the charge going into the engine is too hot. Last lap of the race, Yvan Muller should win this, but right behind, Esteban Guerrieri versus Gabriele Tarquini. Tarquini, don't forget, started the season with 2 wins in Marrakesh. Tarquini has 3 victories under his belt. He was the championship leader before they went to the Nordschleife. And he would love to get back into the hunt, particularly to make sure that Yvan Muller does not creep away too far. But if he takes the checker where he is now, Yvan Muller will also take the points lead. Esteban Guerrieri will do himself no end of favours, and also will put the All Equal Motorsport team into the lead of the Teams Championship, I think. Because if Muller Racing only scoring with 1, aren't close enough to pass, and Sebastian Loeb Racing, who were joint teams leaders before this race with Munich Motorsport, aren't scoring any. So Weimar will score with 1 car, Munich will score with 1 car, BRC will score with 1 car, and Tarquini slowing right down on the last lap, and Norbernage still trying to find a way by. Edgar Florindo rallying on the final lap of the race. Got to say, his Cupra has looked a little bit of a handful. And Muller safely through the final chicane. Guerrieri in second. Where's Tarquini? Is Pepe going to be on the podium? That's too many P's for my popping microphone. Where is Tarquini? Muller's going to win this. Guerrieri is going to be second. Muller takes the lead of the championship. Munich Motorsport will lead the team's points standings, but who will complete the podium? Checkered flag is out. Victory for Ivan Muller. Second for Esteban Guerrieri, and third for Pepe Oriola. Gabriele Tarquini creeping to the line. Oriola takes third. Tarquini will just beat J.K. Verne by meters.
Broken rear suspension.
Yes. The moment he hit the brakes, you saw the car writhe, and Gordon Shedden and Frederick Vervisch round out the points in 9th and 10th. Well, high drama.
Well, no one could have predicted
drama.
Any of that.
No, absolutely. Is it a left front puncture?
No, I think it's rear suspension.
It looked like it, didn't it, the way the car writhed under braking. So Ivan Muller, second race win of the season, joins Jean-Carl Verne and Jan Erlacher with 2 wins. Gabriele Tarquini still with 3 victories.
Good job, Ivan. Very good job. Thank you for the shit start. Good job. Thank you, boys. Thank you. Good job to you. Okay, we have a bit the lock on our side, but it was against us. That's encore.
Left front puncture for Gabriele Tarquini. There might be more to it than that, but that left front is absolutely got no air in it. In fact, you can see just flapping around like a deflated balloon around the tyre, around the rim. Well, Ivan Muller and his boys, Ivan Muller Racing, have got a lot of work to do if they are to get Ted Björk's car racing tomorrow. But for now, Ivan Muller is the championship leader.
What can quite often happen with these punctures is actually it's from a curb strike in the early laps when the tyre has low pressure. It pinches the side of the tyre wall, gives it a weakness, and then later on in the race, when it's very hot, the tyre lets go, and that's actually quite a common failure with these kind of tyres. Let's hear from Pepe Oriola.
¡Vamos, joder! ¡Grande! ¡Qué genio, tío! Enhorabuena.
Well, not quite the winner, but on the podium in 3rd place. And that came as a surprise for him. You know, and again, he worked really hard to get what was going to be 4th, ahead of Jean-Carl Verne. And as a result, it's he and not Verne who gets by Tarquini. And in fact, Verne wasn't quite close enough in the end, was he? But Pepe was. So Pepe Oriola, his first podium of the season.
Pepe was super worried about the start of the race as well, because he's had a clutch issue.
Yeah.
He'd been nursing through the day and there wasn't enough time to change the clutch before the race, so he was really worried how he was going to get off the line. So, you know, combine that with being on new tyre runs during the 3 red flags in qualifying, his luck has changed 180 degrees.
It's certainly got better as the day's gone on, hasn't it? Yes.
A lot of local support for him here. Obviously, Spanish driver just over the border from here in Portugal. So, yeah, he'll be very relieved to get those points. As will Ivan Muller, because you know, Ivan didn't qualify well and then made the worst start I think I've ever seen Ivan make.
Yeah.
And that start was his saving grace to allow him to escape relatively injury-free.
Probably was, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think they changed the bumper and a few bits for the restart, but yeah, he did a unbelievable job of staying out of trouble, which was all from the luck of having a bad start.
Second podium of the season for Pepe Oriola. He was on the podium race 2 in the Nürburgring on that reverse grid. There's his dad in the pale trousers. He was coming into Parc Fermé, and then they said, oh no, you should have gone in a little bit further back up. Right, yeah, that doesn't work really, does it? So here is our race winner. Again, fortunes turn in an instant in motor racing, and Ivan Muller has gone from thinking, oh, I'm not even going to get any points in this race, to ending up not only getting maximum points, but also leading the points standings. Now for Pepe Oriola, you know, he was stuffed after qualifying, wasn't he? 13th place, he would have been doing well to get points in a standard race, and there he is, 3rd on the grid. And Esteban Guerrieri, again from 8th place, you know, 2nd. Nah, that ain't happening. Oh, his dad, just as delighted as Pepe. And the top 5, Rob Huff, Mehdi Benani, Norbert Mikulits, Jan Elesche, Ted Björk, end up with a 0, and might, for all 5 of them, possibly end up being 3 zeros this weekend. Now, we've said several times, you know, after Saturday, you can reset and start again absolutely from scratch for a 2-race weekend for Sunday. But that rather is prejudiced by the fact that several cars are very badly damaged. So in this race, no Gianni Morbidelli, no James Thompson, no John Philippi, no Ted Björk, no Jan Elesche, no Mehdi Benani, no Rob Huff, no Norbert Mikulits. Tom Coronel didn't finish, Denis Dupont didn't finish, Jose Rodriguez did, and did his Joker lap, but had a long time in the pits. Aurelien Panis, the last of the running cars, pitted, well, he rolled to a halt, didn't he? And then rolled down pit road. So effectively, officially, 15 finishers.
Thank you, my friends.
I think everyone's kind of just relieved to get to this stage of the day, to be honest, given what's happened today. So we'll go over to Alex Legui.
Ivan Muller, your 2nd win of the season. You are now points leader. What a day, what a way to do it. Bad qualifying, not the best race start, but here you are.
No, for sure, but it was a long race, actually, between the start and the end of the race. Okay, it's a victory. I take the point, of course, but it's not a real victory. That one or race 2 is not a real victory, but I take it. I want to think of Benani and Rob. Rob was the fastest on qualifying, and he would probably win this race, so he was the fastest today.
Thank you very much, Ivan.
Thank you.
Well, you know, the points are in the hat, and the championship lead again. We were talking about, is Ivan going to come back next year with another team, or is he going to knock it on the head as a driver? And the lure of that 5th World Championship is definitely strong, and, you know, he's got the fire in the belly still, and he leads the points after 13 races. Unlucky race 13 for an awful lot of people. Esteban Guerrieri, Pepe Oriola complete the podium ahead of Gabriele Tarquini, who was lucky to get to the end. If that puncture had happened a lap earlier, he wouldn't be anywhere near the points. Jean-Carl Verne 5th, Aurelien Comte 6th, Benjamin Lassen in 7th, ahead of Nat Berton, Gordon Shedden and Frederick Vervish, rounding out the point scorers. Then Fabrizio Giovanardi, Mato Homler, Edgar Florindo, Norbert Nudge and Zoltan Szabo are the final finishers, with 4 cars that started the race failing to complete it. Aurelien Panis, Denis Dupont, Jose Rodriguez and Tom Coronel, and 7 cars not making it to the grid at all. So the championship now has Ivan Muller as the leader from Jan Elesche, who didn't improve his score. Jean-Carl Verne moves a point ahead of Gabriele Tarquini, or stays a point ahead of Gabriele Tarquini, as Tarquini closes up. Rob Huff doesn't score either. Guerrieri 1 point behind him. It's really close, actually, behind the top 2. From Verne in 4th down to Guerrieri, 4 points. Is my maths right? Yeah, that's close enough. Ted Björk doesn't score, Norby doesn't score, Pepe does, gets himself onto the first page of the drivers' standings. And we also...
Of course, Huff, won't score any points at all this weekend. And there's a bit of a question mark over Elache as well.
And Bonani and Thompson and Morbidelli and John Philippi, you know, he was looking at a potential good race weekend. He had lots of pace in free practice. John Philippi qualified really strongly.
Possibly Mikulits as well.
Yeah, possibly Norby as well. Yeah, so a few of our potential championship front runners having a bit of a torrid time here in Villarreal. So on the stage, this is backstage at the Municipal Theatre. It has an internal auditorium, and that part of the stage is being used as the media centre. And on the back of the stage, you open the back shutters and you face out to the amphitheatre outside. Now, Varmuller Racing, my points counting obviously wasn't correct, have jumped ahead of Munich Motorsport. How have they done that then?
25 for a win.
Okay, I didn't think they were that close. Obviously, the maths is better than my maths, so we'll go with that. Weimar come from 3rd to 1st, and All-Inkle Munich Motorsport dropped to 2nd, just a whisker behind them. Lots of overnight work, a lot of overnight work facing many of our teams. I don't think there can be a team in the paddock that hasn't got 1, 2 or possibly even more damaged cars. Actually, I think about the only team without major damage would be the Come To You Racing team. Well, this is the battle after Verne came off his joker lap with Pepe Oriola. Oriola with just a little bit of momentum, squeezed his way through. That was for 4th, Richard. In the end, that ended up being for the podium as he got by Gabriele Tarquini. The Italian having a puncture 3/4 of the way round the final lap. And Oriola finishing in 3rd spot.
These guys are just super relieved, I think, to get to the end of the day and have some solid points.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think we'll all be very pleased to finish today.
Muller Racing is Ivan Muller.
And now this is where all Alex's rehearsal with Portuguese pronunciations comes in handy.
Representing Ivan Muller Racing is Frederick Verlaine.
Okay, possibly not that bit. But when she announces who's handing out the trophies, well, they're smiling, but Ted Björk's car is going to reappear. They've got a lot of work to do.
And Ivan Muller Racing. Villarreal Municipality Councilman will present our third position trophy to Pepe Oriola. Seguros Director will present our second position trophy to Esteban Guerrieri. Caixa de Crédito Agrícola Mutua, Villarreal Director, will present our winning driver's trophy to Ivan Vila.
Well, congratulations to Ivan Muller.
Villarreal Municipality Councilman will present the winning team trophy to Ivan Muller Racing's Frederick Verline.
Yeah. So, Fred Verline hiding round the corner. There he is. And congratulations to the team, to Ivan. Congratulations to Esteban Guerrieri and to Pepe Oriola as well. And especially congratulations and heartfelt thanks to all of the marshals, the safety workers, the track workers who cleared up after the big crash earlier on this afternoon and allowed us to get a race safely run in what looked like the least likely of circumstances. And for those who have survived the day, I'm sure they'll be counting their blessings. For those team members who have got a long night of work in front of them, I think our best wishes and deepest sympathies as well. There is a lot of damaged machinery that needs fixing, so I'm afraid there won't be much beers for the boys or champagne being handed out for quite a number of the teams. Well, Esteban Guerrieri making sure his boys are at least wearing some of that William de Braquelera Honda go. I don't think so if you want any spare points. Here's Ivan Muller, the championship leader from Yann Lachey, and Jean-Carl Vernet a point ahead of Gabriele Tarquini. Rob Huff in 5th position, and Esteban Guerrieri rounding out the top half dozen. So it is now a couple of minutes from 7 o'clock in the evening. In fact, it's a minute to 7 o'clock in the evening here. Our race started originally at 4 p.m. So congratulations to everybody for getting things done, and our very best wishes go to Rob Huff and Mehdi Banani. We wish you both a speedy recovery. We'll be back tomorrow as we start all this again with qualifying at 08:55 local, which is 07:55 Greenwich Mean Time. Between now and then, who knows what more will happen.